Andy Ngo is the conservative photographer who went on a nationwide tour to make himself a professional victim of anti-fascist protesters. Now, to be fair, when that story broke, he was in fact assaulted by anti-fascist protesters. But people were arrested. The media was outraged by it. Jake Tapper went on a tear about it. Joe Rogan had Andy Ngo on about it. And Andy Ngo was all about, hey, we really need to stop with directing violence toward individuals we disagree with, right? No more political violence. Well, a left-wing activist went undercover. He goes by Ben, that's not his real name. And he started hanging out with Patriot Prayer. That is one of the far right-wing groups that's been involved in a bunch of violent altercations. You know, they engage with counter-protesters. And the footage that was discovered through this process indicates that Andy Ngo likes to turn a blind eye to right-wing violence, even as members of the right wing are planning and coordinating that violence. And we're gonna show you those examples in just a second. But first, let me give you some details on what happened with this undercover activist. Footage taken from an undercover liberal activist in May and described by the Portland Mercury showed no witnessing activists from the far-right group Patriot Prayer planning a violent confrontation at a bar associated with left-wing activists. Ngo never reported on what he had seen the Patriot Prayer members planning, and some of the people involved in the attack at the bar now face felony riot charges. And luckily, this video is going to be used as evidence in the case. Now, with that said, I do want to show you some relevant portions of the video. You should watch the full thing, it's about 20 minutes long. But you're about to hear them kind of discuss what to do about the possibility of getting pepper sprayed as they provoke people and try to get into these violent altercations. They also later talk about weapons, so take a look.
By the way, the headquarters of the Oregon Democratic Center right around the corner right here.
Wait, like for the party? What's a Democratic Center?
Like party headquarters.
Gotcha, okay. Huh, yes. What's that?
We're just checking which way the wind was blowing so we don't spray ourselves.
Yeah, that would suck.
It's blowing out of the northwest, I think. So.
I think it's whatever, it's blowing that way.
So two things I want to clarify. If you see the guy in a blue shirt, that's Andy Ngo. So that's evidence that he was there. And if you didn't hear clearly because it's a little muffled, the guy later says, I'm just trying to see which way the wind is blowing so we don't spray ourselves, because they're planning on using pepper spray against their opponents.
So that's when Andy Ngo was outraged and said, damn it, we cannot have violence on either side. Oh no, he didn't say anything, that's right. He covered that up and then later pretended to be outraged. Or maybe since conservatives have no ability to empathize with any other human being, he might have been genuinely outraged when he was assaulted. He's like, oh, when other people are assaulted, that's fun. That's us doing violence on them in this group. And my job as a reporter is not to report the right wing, it's just to do propaganda. But when it happens to me, I'm actually outraged. When it was happening to you, it was fun.
So let's take a look at the next video. And if there's anything that might seem difficult to understand, I'll clarify after we watch. Take a look.
I mean, how long until like Gibson gets here? And we have like some more numbers.
That's not his numbers. His numbers are not going to boast.
What, he shows up with his choir?
We need what? We need.
I mean,
who's the guy with the weapons here? It's me.
That is some rad, man. Is that like a old military like respirator?
All right, so you hear them mention Gibson. When is he gonna get here? They're referring to Joey Gibson, who's the leader of Patriot Prayer. And the reason why they wanted to wait for him to show up is because they wanted more people on their side, because they had located where the so-called anti-fascists were hanging out, which was the bar, and they wanted to approach them and get into a violent altercation, but they realized that they were outnumbered. So they're asking, where's Gibson, meaning Joey Gibson? And then someone also mentions who here has the weapon. So they're being very clear about how one of them is armed. And then luckily, they did not approach at that moment, but later they did confront the anti-fascist protesters at the bar. As they were hanging out, minding their own business, it did get violent, which is why members of Patriot Prayer are now facing criminal charges.
So as you can see, it sounds like one of them is saying, don't worry about being outnumbered, we have weapons. So later when they use weapons, the police will be able to use this video to say, it's not like you didn't plan it. Here you are on tape before the altercation, planning it. So that'll hurt him in court. Now Andy Ngo sees all that, doesn't report any of it. Look, I know he's a provocateur, and he goes in and for the left wing that he's theoretically covering as a reporter, he tries to provoke them. So he'll go and goad and goad and goad. And one time, some group of folks fell for it. They threw the milkshakes on him, and then they actually hit him. Okay, so we here at TYT are principled. So I know it's annoying that he's goading you, but don't fall for it, because then first of all, it's the wrong thing to do. Second of all, it's illegal. So we're already done with the conversation. But on top of that, if you don't care about any of those things, you should. And that it's not a progressive position to do violence. But if all you cared about was strategy, then what does he do? He goes on cable news and makes it seem like the one time he successfully goaded any of you is worth all the other mass shootings and terrorist attacks on the right-wing side. And cable news helps him. And they're like, well, okay, you say tomato, I say tomato. You say tomato, I say Andy Ngo. Now, look, you see Andy Ngo is now exposed as a hypocrite. And apparently the organization that he was with, Quillette.
It appears that they let him go because immediately after this was published, again, this is in Portland Mercury, and you should check out the full report. He took out Quillette from his Twitter biography, and then Quillette removed him from their website. And now the head of Quillette is saying, no, I didn't even watch that video. It's just that he's decided to move on and do bigger, better things.
Sure.
Whatever.
Okay.
I don't really care about his career or his future. Like, he can go do whatever the hell he wants. I don't care whether he got fired or not. What I do care about, though, is setting the record straight about who perpetuates the violence and who turns a blind eye to violence while going around with their grifty selves trying to pull money out of people as they make themselves out as the victims. After Andy Ngo was hit with some milkshakes, he put out a crowdfunding call, and people gave him nearly $200,000.
Oh.
So I think that there's a scam component to this, but look, more importantly, there is a let's smear the left wing and make them out to be the dangerous ones component to this, which should be abundantly clear to people who have all the resources in the world in the mainstream media to investigate this, but they don't. They just take the conservatives' word for it when they should be taking their narrative with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and so look, finally, we condemn the violence if it comes from the left wing, but we want fair, honest reporting from everyone that shows the proportions, okay? And the reality is the right wing, as you see in that tape, plans violence repeatedly. And then you see, of course, the mass shootings that are happening from extreme right wingers. And you see what happened in Charlottesville. And none of these are equal to a milkshake. And yes, the assault on Andy Ngo, which was bad, but that's the molehill. At least report on the mountain of violence from the right wing, as you see here, because God knows Andy Ngo isn't going to report on it, because he's not a real reporter. He's not only has an agenda, he lies about his agenda.
One final thing I want to mention, in the excellent reporting by Portland Mercury, there are a bunch of quotes from Ben. This is the undercover activist who put this video out. And I want to share one of them, but again, please read the full report. Ben says Ngo doesn't film Patriot Prayer protesters discussing strategies or motives. He only turns his camera on when members of Antifa enter the scene.
Isn't that convenient? A reporter who's like, well, when we're planning the violence together, I'm not going to turn on my camera. Sounds like a corrupt cop, right? But when I'm goading you, and in case you make a mistake, I got the camera rolling. Reporter. And maybe that is the right wing idea of a reporter.
Smear merchants, that's all.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.